Hi, I'm Mary Beth Jacobs. I'm going to be going over mosaic knitting charts, deciphering them, and how to use them. I will be going through charts for mosaic knitting worked flat, as well as mosaic knitting worked in the round. The approach I'm going to take is I'm going to first show you kind of like an exploded diagram, like an exploded, expanded version of a mosaic chart. And then I'm going to show you the type of mosaic chart that you will more likely than not encounter in your endeavors. Let's make sure we're on the same page. Definition wise, what is mosaic knitting? It's essentially a very specific type of slipped stitch knitting. It was developed by Barbara Walker. You may be familiar with her treasuries. Her 1 and 2 volumes do contain mosaic knitting. She does not call it mosaic knitting, and she does not chart it. By her third treasury, she has this whole thing really established. She has a chapter dedicated specifically to mosaic knitting. She names it, she calls it mosaic knitting. She comes up with rules and she comes up with a charting system. She goes further and she makes an actual book entirely devoted to mosaic knitting. So essentially, what we are doing in mosaic knitting is we are making stripes. I have color A and I have color B. If I'm working flat, I'm going to work color A, a right side row, a wrong side row. I'm going to work color B, a right side row, a wrong side row. If I'm working in the round, I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm essentially going to be working 2 rounds. So if I'm working A, I'm going to work around once, twice in A, then I'm going to switch to B once, twice around, and continuing in that manner. Essentially, in both ways, I am making a set of 2 row stripes. So how do I get from stripes to this? That's where my slipped stitches come in. When I'm working a row, a stripe of color A, if I need color B, I'm going to dip down to the stripe below and I'm going to slip that stitch and pull that color up. And simply by making stripes and dipping down a row, I can make all these really interesting geometric patterns. You can see these are not little tiny repeating motifs. These are large pictorial pieces, and they're fairly geometric in shape because a slip stitch is inherently vertical. So you get this kind of like 16-bit chunky look to it, which is, really cool. Typically, the base fabric is going to be garter stitch. It doesn't have to be, though. You can use a base stitch of stockinette. You can also mix. You could decide that color A is always going to be in garter stitch and color B is always going to be in stockinette. So there's lots of choices, but for the purposes of what we are going to do, we're going to say that the base fabric is, in fact, garter stitch. So I'm going to switch my video to the actual charts. So here is a mosaic chart. I've made it flat and I've done that exploded. I kind of alluded to it, an exploded version, an expanded version. And so let's just notice some things. So first of all, every single chart I'm going to show you is an adaptation of Therese Chynoweth's chart from the TKGA 2026 knit along. So let's first notice I have a repeat. So a repeat in mosaic knitting works like a repeat in most every other form of knitting, where these stitches within this red box are the stitches that I am going to be using repeatedly in this sequence over and over again until I get to the end of my row. What is different about mosaic knitting are the stitches that are outside of the repeat. Typically, when you have stitches outside a repeat, it is for visual balance. It's an aesthetic and it's for balance. Mosaic, the very first and the very final stitch that are outside of the repeat are actually structural. Okay, you may have one or two stitches in addition to these two for balance, but this very first and the very final stitch in mosaic knitting worked flat are structural. And what they are doing is they are anchoring in the yarn for the stripe that you are making. So if you notice here, you can see pretty clearly those stripes I had talked about. I have a right side row stripe and a wrong side row stripe. Okay, so let's just walk through this. So I would knit my first stitch, and I'm making a blue stripe, so I'm going to knit every single stitch. Now my chart says I need to have a white stitch. So I should have a field of white knitting down here below. So I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to slip a white stitch with my blue working yarn in back, so it sits on the wrong side. And then I am going to knit across, and I'm going to slip my white stitch with my blue working yarn to the wrong side with it in back, and I'm going to knit to the end. Now I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to work in garter stitch. So I'm going to knit that first stitch, making sure that I anchor in my yarn. And I'm going to knit every single blue stitch and then slip again every white stitch. And this time, because I'm on the wrong side, my working yarn will have to go in front so that it always is sitting on the wrong side of the fabric. And I'm going to knit all my blues and knit to the end and slip all my whites. So my first stripe is done. Now I'm moving on to my white stripe. I don't cut my yarn and weave in ends. I simply drop, and I have to drop consistently. The way I drop is I take my old yarn and I bring it counterclockwise and down, and I take my new yarn, bring it counterclockwise and up. Okay, this is the same motion that I use when I'm doing intarsia, when I'm interlocking yarns. So, why not get in the habit, right? But whatever way you decide to do it, be consistent. So I'm going to start my white stripe. I'm going to knit that first stitch, anchoring in, knit every place where it says I need a white stitch, and then every place it says I need a blue stitch, I'm going to dip down to the stripe below. I'm going to slip that stitch with my working yarn to the wrong side in the back, knit every white stitch, slip every blue stitch with the yarn in back, and knit to the end. I'll turn, and on my wrong side, I will knit again, making sure I anchor in that yarn, knit across, slip every blue stitch, this time with my yarn in front so it sits to the wrong side of the fabric, and then I will knit all my whites, slip with yarn in front blue, and knit across. Okay, so you can kind of see here, if we take a big look, all these places where we see these V's, these symbols for slipping stitches, they occur on the opposite stripe row, okay? So this is an expanded form. Let me show you how you will normally see this same pattern. Okay, so here is the mosaic pattern. It's the exact same one, and it's worked flat. And this is the type of charting that you will normally see. So I had penciled these in. Sometimes you will see this, sometimes you won't, but I penciled it in because this is how Barbara Walker does hers. Okay, so this has a lot less symboling because it assumes you know and understand the conventions of mosaic knitting. So let's just walk through this, okay? So here I am on my first row. It's a right side row, and I'm going to knit my anchor stitch. This should seem familiar. I'm going to knit all the blues. Now when I get to the white, I remember I'm working a blue stripe, and I don't have white as a working yarn. I have blue as a working yarn. So I'm going to dip below and slip purlwise with my blue working yarn in back. I'm going to knit every single stitch that's supposed to be blue. And when I get to these white I will slip purlwise with my working yarn and back. Okay. So now I've done my first right side row. I have to do my wrong side row. So I'll turn, and you see here, this is also my wrong side row, just going in that direction. Okay. So I will knit again that first stitch, knit all the blues, slip the white with my working yarn in front so that my working yarn is carried to the wrong side, and knit again all my blues, slip purlwise my whites, and knit across. When I get to the point where I'm going to start my next stripe, I will change yarns in the same fashion, drop my old counterclockwise and down, take my new counterclockwise and up, and begin working my white stripe, knitting all the white stitches. And every time I see I need a blue, I will pull from the stripe below by slipping purlwise with the working yarn and back, and knit across all the whites. Okay, so let me ask you, why on earth would we do this instead of this? This is more descriptive, right? Well, what this takes into consideration is that you have done all the hard work of setting up the row on this first row. So when you turn, you already have this whole thing all set up. You are literally knitting the blue and slipping the white. Okay, so it's a lot like when you do a 1x1 rib, a knit one, purl one rib. Once you set it up, you just knit the knits and purl the purls. Well, it's the same basic concept here with this mosaic stuff. You set it up, you set up your stripe, you set up the patterning, and then when you go to do the second round, it's all set up for you. So you are literally working the same stitches and slipping the same stitches. And all you have to do is concentrate on keeping your base fabric correct and keeping the working yarn so that it's always traveling on the wrong side. Okay, so let's look at mosaic now in the round, and let's look at it in this expanded form. Okay, so again, we are going to be working 2 rows of stripes, but notice the second row, the second round has to be purled, because when I'm working in the round, the right side of my fabric is always facing me, and that necessarily means to make garter stitch, I have to purl. Okay, so let's walk through this. I have a repeat, just like I did when I was working the chart flat. I only have 1 anchor, and that's because I'm working in the round. I only need 1 anchor. I don't have to anchor on both sides. So I have this 1 anchor, and you can see I have all my stripes set up in this anchor. Okay, so round 1, I'm going to knit, and I'm going to knit every place that it says I need a blue. Every place it says I need a white, I'm going to slip it purlwise with my working yarn and back. And I'm going to continue in this manner through the round 1. When I get to round 2, I have all of this set up. I'm going to purl now every single blue stitch in the pattern I established and according to the chart. I'm going to purl them so that I make garter stitch. And I'm going to slip the white again. And again, I'm going to have my working yarn in back, my blue yarn in back. When I was working flat, I had to flip-flop it because I had the different side showing, the wrong side showing. Here, I always have the right side showing, so I will always have my working yarn in back. And I'm going to purl across all my blues, slip purlwise with yarn in back for all my whites. I finish round 2. Now I get to go to round 3. And again, I'm going to change yarns in the exact same manner. I will drop the old counterclockwise and down. I will bring the new counterclockwise and up. I will knit my anchor stitch, knit everywhere it says I need a white. And wherever it says I need a blue, I'm going to slip purlwise with my yarn and back so that I pull up the blue from the stripe below. And I'm going to continue in this manner until I finish round 3. And then when I get to round 4, I have all this established. And so now I have to concentrate on keeping the stitch pattern of garter stitch. And so I will now purl every single white stitch because I'm making a white stripe. And I will slip with the yarn and back every blue stitch because I'm pulling that color up. Okay, and then let's look at this same chart in the format that you might more often see. And again, this looks almost exactly the same as this same pattern when it was worked flat, except working in the round, I only need one anchor stitch. When I had this chart working flat, I had an anchor stitch here as well, but I don't need that working in the round. I just need the one. Again, this chart assumes that you know mosaic knitting. So it assumes that you understand that when you're working a blue stripe, to get a white, you have to slip it purlwise from the stripe below every single time. Okay, so we'll walk through this again. I'm going to knit my anchor stitch. I'll knit everywhere it says a blue. When it says I need a white, I will slip purlwise with my working yarn and back, pulling the white up from the stripe below. I'll knit all my blue, slip purlwise with my yarn and back, and knit. When I get to round 2, I have all of this information established already on my needle. And so now I concentrate on working every single blue stitch because I'm still making a blue stripe, but keeping my stitch pattern. Okay, so I will purl my blue, and then I will slip my white with yarn and back. And when I finish round 2, I'm going to go to round 3. I have a color change because now I'm going to work a white stripe. I'll drop my old yarn counterclockwise and down. I'll bring my new yarn counterclockwise and up. I'll knit my anchor stitch, knit everywhere it says to make a white, and everywhere it says to make a blue, I will slip purlwise with my yarn and back because I'm working a white stripe and I'm going to pull from the blue stripe below. And I'll work in that manner across my 3rd round. When I get to my 4th round, all of this information is going to be established on my needle. So now all I have to do is concentrate on maintaining my base fabric of garter stitch. So I will purl all my white stitches and slip again all my blue stitches. Okay, so let's take a look now at the pattern that was in the TKGA 2026 knit along. And this is from Therese Chynoweth's pattern. So this is the same format that I've used in every single one of my charts that you've seen so far. You can see this is somewhat of a hybrid between that really big expanded version and then the final version that I showed you. And this takes into consideration that there are probably going to be people making this who this might be their first time, and they're nice little reminders, okay? So let's read this note. It says, the Mosaic pattern chart shows odd number or knit rounds only. When working our even numbered rounds, purl the knit stitches and slip the slip stitches of the previous round with the yarn and back. So this is exactly what we had talked about on the other 2 versions of this chart. So we'll start here. You can see here, these are all our anchor stitches showing us which color stripe we are working. And this is our repeat, okay? And this chart does utilize the slip stitch notation, and that's to help us remember if you are working a white stripe and you need to make a blue stitch, you make it by slipping and pulling up from the stripe below. Okay, so round 1, we would knit and knit all our blues. When we got to a white, we would slip purlwise with our working yarn and back and continue on our way. as we got to the end of round one, we'd start round two, and now we concentrate on maintaining garter stitch. So I will purl. I'll purl all my blue and slip again all my white with my working yarn and back. And then I change again at 3, just like I had in all the other charts, by dropping my old yarn counterclockwise and down, bringing my new yarn up counterclockwise, and knitting all the white, and slipping purlwise with yarn and back all the blue, pulling up from the stripe below, and continuing in this pattern all the way around. And then when I get to round 4, I have all this information established on my needles. So now all I have to do again is concentrate on keeping the base fabric in garter stitch, which means purling every single white and slipping once again every single blue. Okay, so hopefully after going through this, you have a pretty good idea on how to approach your mosaic knitting charts and approach the charts for the 2026 TKGA knit along. So thank you, and I hope you do the knit along, and I can't wait to see your projects.